My name has already introduced is Vahid and Maria, and I'm pleased to present our collaborative research AI-powered education ecosystem. So, enrolled in a classroom where all the students have personalized tutors, assessments are adapted, and administrative jobs are done instantly and in stream. It's not a science fiction, it's the reality of future education powered by AI. So, we're talking about education ecosystem. Let's start with the definition for education ecosystem. An education ecosystem basically refers to interconnected network of institutions, individuals, technology, and resources that collectively support and influence the learning and teaching process. AI has tremendously transformed an education ecosystem by reshaping the way we teach, learn, and manage education institutions. The impact of AI goes beyond in classrooms, and it helps different players and stakeholders in the education ecosystem to better interact and connect with each other. And also, AI has changed the way that education institutions leader make their decisions by making more informed decisions using big data and insights from these data to make better decisions and more informed decisions. Looking into literature and looking at various technology integrated education models, we notice that most of these education models, integrated education models, have limited focus, and they focus on the integration of technology into the way that educators teach. So it's the application of technology by teachers. For example, TI, which is one of the well recognized technology integrated model, focuses on how teachers and educators can use technology to streamline teaching and make it more effective. These models suggest in order to effectively integrate technology into teaching, educators need to have a balanced knowledge of technology, pedagogical knowledge, and content knowledge. Similarly, SAM model, which is another technology integrated education model, suggests that educators and teachers can use technology in different way. Either technology substitutes the current task, or it enhance the task that currently teachers are doing, or it modifies it, or it redefines the current task and bring about new tasks and different ways of doing things using technology. So, by looking at this prior literature and technology integrated model, we realize that these models provide valuable insight into technology can be integrated in education ecosystems. They have some critical dimensions, including they not providing a basic approach on how AI can be integrated into education system, like how AI can be used by educators, by learners, by librarians, by administrators, for the decision makers and leadership in the education system. Also, that examining the way AI can facilitate communication and interaction between these players in the ecosystem. And also another limitation or research that we identified is that the ethical application of AI in education has been overlooked in most research, like looking at all these factors in its, in a unified model is something that is lacking in the current literature. And also how AI can be used in decision making and how we can align the objectives of the institution with the objectives of educators and learners using AI has been overlooked in prior literature. In our research, we try to develop a holistic model that try to bridge the gap in the prior literature based on constructivist theory. Constructivist theory is one of the well-known theories in education that emphasizes on active participation of learners in the education journey. Means learners actively construct their own knowledge and understanding by being involved in the learning process through experiences and reflections. So these are the main principles of constructivist learning: active learning, social interaction, scaffolding and personalization, self-regulation learning, and inquiry-based learning. Know that AI can tremendously facilitate implementation of constructivist learning principles. So there are different tools, there are different approaches that AI can facilitate the implementation of these principles. So this is a model that we have designed. It's a holistic model that explains AI-powered education ecosystem. This conceptual model involves bionic elements and abiotic elements. Bionic elements involves all the active agents, including learners, educators, administrators, librarians, decision makers, policy makers, and abiotic elements refers to physical infrastructure, learning management system, all the softwares and tools that are going to be used in education system. Then we talked about multi-layer conceptual model that involves functional layer, interaction layer, and a governance layer. So as I said, we tried to design a model that is comprehensive, holistic, looking at the integration of AI across the education ecosystem, how we can effectively and efficiently implement AI in the education ecosystem. So the research methodology that we use, we focus on conceptual, theoretical methodology method. Basically, we focus on a systematic literature review of peer-reviewed articles, published report focusing on constructivist learning theory. We reviewed literature on different integrated technology integrated education models. We also studied artificial intelligence in education, and we reviewed articles on ethics, governance, and data privacy in education study. So these are some of the main articles that we reviewed. We reviewed, like the main articles on constructivist theory. We also, as I mentioned, reviewed articles on the integration of AI in education and different areas. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Maria to explain in more depth each layer of this conceptual model.
Thank you very much. So our model, our very colorful picture that we have here, was an aha moment for our research team when we were discussing the literature and the results we were having there. We realized that all the previous papers or diagrams that show how AI works in education were very linear. Some of them promoted content creation. Some others view functions separately. So when we started discussing our research, we found out that we needed to see the layers that intertwine with each other and that help our entire ecosystem, if I'm really redundant, to provide the learning experience from the students, not just content creation in the classroom, not just creating experiential learning in the classroom, but the administrative tasks that goes around creating lesson plans for the students, the customer service we provide to the students, the admission processes, every task that is related with functioning in education is now going to be fed by AI tools that will serve as interpreters. Layer by layer, the first one is the functional layer. We name it functional because it's the layer that will fuel the entire model. And the idea with this layer is that it has 4 different aspects that serves as the main engine of the ecosystem. The first one is personalization. By personalizations, it's all the tools related that to students having personalized pathways of learning and growth for learning processes. So we researched some of the tools that are available. Not all the tools were created with generative AI. Some of the tools come from earlier findings of machine learning in education. So we have applications that date back to 2017, 2019, where this was being explored, connecting systems to be able to feed the students' experience in the classroom. So from the two tools here that I want to highlight is, for example, Replica is like an assistant to the student, and the student can have a kind of chatbot conversation, and the device or the application will learn from the student and will help being a private friend to talk about anything that happens around their lives. But then you have Zana, for example, where you can program it as different roles in the company. So this goes from students learning in school level to organizations also learning, from applications where they can be, for example, the sales representative and play with the AI, with the real challenges in the real world. It helps train their teams and it helps train students for the future workplace. For optimization, for example, we have the predictive analysis. So a lot of this is based on students and all the actors involved in the learning process feeding the AIs to help create content based on what their habits are. And I highlight here, for example, the IBM skills build, because it helps students train skills until it accompanies them to the workplace. And of course, all the tailored education that we have in. Then we have automation, which will pretty much help with the everyday tasks, not only for teachers, but also for management and planning of institutions, of education institutions. In the integration component, all these learning management systems, and if we are pretty much teaching, we have used any kind of learning management system at some point and help integrate it with this person. Now, on top of this layer, you've seen in the previous model, we have the interaction layer, which is where the communication process happens. And it's very simple. We have biotic elements, which will be the people, peer interaction, customer service, learners, professors, mentors, and every personnel related or staff related to serving the students in the process, and abiotic elements or structural components, which is related to systems, how individuals interact with systems. Some of the models overlap, some of the tools overlap. So this one appears again, all the learning systems. But you can also have here chat box and conversations that go beyond the activity in the classroom. For example, when students need to book a session with their advisors and how it integrates with what they're learning in the classroom to make a decision to apply for a job or an internship. When we have the outer layer, it's the ethics and governance. And when we started researching in the previous model, we saw that ethics is still at its early development in the literature with AI applications, but it still is not foreign because we raised the question of ethical use and responsible use of AI. And it depends on two things. Number one, how institutions decide to implement the policy of AI use. And number two, the use and the real applications that users are seeing that comes out of interactions with AI. So for instance, we have a very interesting AI tools development here that imparts in two senses. Number one, we have the educators and also the administrators feeding the AI with real life situations. For example, when they have a result, when the students have an exercise and it doesn't turn out as expected because of the bias in AI, they report the situation. And at the same time, for example, with what if, this is a very interesting tool, what if turns the conversation to students? But if the results I get from the AI are not necessarily or have a lot of bias, and how are you going to respond to that at a workplace when you go to the workplace or within your learning processes? What I found, and the biggest conclusion for our research so far in this sense, is a lot of tools have been using a lot of developments in the school level. But when it comes to higher education, it's still very unexplored because with higher education, we deal with harder and more in-depth issues. If you're teaching math to a 10-year-old, you have a lot of gamification tools and experiences and everything. But when you are teaching a group of master students to configure or to create a strategy for a marketing plan, the conversation takes to another level. So what are the tools taking us to help enhance and enrich their experience so they use it as they are expected to use it at the workplace? So if the ecosystem is reaching out all levels of education. With our research, what comes after today's presentation and moving forward is we're going to test our model with interviews, in-depth interviews, not only for faculty and instructors, but also for administrators of the education and all the processes. What we want is the real life feedback. Can we implement this and can we make it into a much robust and stronger policy? Then with what we results we obtain from the conversations and interview, we're going to do a comparative benchmarking of this application in different institutions, which will turn out to be a set of case studies that we will have. In the literature, we also have realized that some universities around the world have been posting their version of how this could work or the policies they have on the uses of AI, putting up on the table their experience, their own experience. And of course, we will continue with expansion of empirical testing and adaptations to these. The contributions we want to have out of this work in two fronts. The first one is theoretical. So it's establishing a framework integrated with constructivist learning principles. And in the literature and in the theory, still to this day, their contributions to theory are a continuum, but then we want to add our element and observation with higher education. And we want to expand the knowledge beyond just methodology and pedagogy, automation and content creation. We want to expand it to the entire ecosystem of education. And empirical, obviously, is to help faculty and all the actors involved with the adoption of AI. Still, we find that when we have conversations with colleagues about the use of AI, we have some hesitation. We have some fear, sometimes a bit of shame in recognizing and advancing and saying, yes, we're willing to experiment. We are going to overcome this fear and learn from the experiences and everything. So we want to help this transition. And obviously, highlighting the best experiences in our own institutions and moving forward to encounter colleagues around the world discussing the same issues. For future research and direction, our research will be a long-term impact on the student motivation and engagement, cross-cultural adoption and equity challenges, and development of more refined curriculums. When I was exploring all the tools with my colleagues, we saw that creating engagement content and creating engaging exercises is just not enough anymore if we cannot tailor to each individual different ways of learning. Each person understands the concept. We have ways that can be fed to offer different routes for learning and the feedback we provide to every individual. As a conclusion, from what we have so far, AI is not just a tool, but it's a transformative agent. Our model supports ethical, personalized, and data-informed education. So we're not foreign that ethics has to be at the center of the use of these tools. And it's a call to action to co-create, test, and adapt this model to collaborations among us.
That was great, thank you very much. And we actually have 5 minutes left for any questions for Vahid or for Maria. So the floor is open.
Informationality. I also have informationality in their requirements.
Question. Hi, thank you so much. Although decades and we got to this theory hard within this constructivism sector, it may focus more on social constructivism, whereas we got to be focusing more on cultural, historical constructivism. And I noticed in your model that you focus more really on social interaction in terms of incorporating it to AI. So I'm wondering, how would you then integrate the components of the God's case culture and historical perspective moving forward?
So I would, from our point of view, what we have so far, we started having the discussion on the main principle, and yes, it has a big component of interaction. It means maybe the evolution of our research, we will detach a little bit from the classical view and move into more recent discussions, and probably even have to overlap with other theories to complement our model. When you design a ecosystem, you certainly touch on different fields and questions, theoretical questions from each field. So at this point in the theoretical level, we are still researching and evaluating, because there has been other theories that complement to it. For example, with communication across cultural issues, we have some theories also, because the exception and the implementation comes different when you come from this cultural background and you come from this other cultural background. So it will vary, but you're right. Maybe in the pathway we will change it like that. Thanks.
Thank you for the wonderful work and excellent work. Actually, I want to contribute by saying that in terms of the theoretical background is to look at theories like equity, because but the aspect of what I see very eminent as well in this ecosystem, it's the equity part and the ability of everyone to have access to AI. And so equity really with that, work for including equity into the ecosystem. So it can happen.
Thank you so much for the feedback. We can, it's a really great point to add, but we can kind of consider it as part of the ethical and ethical concern in the application of AI, because that is part of ethical consideration as well. But it definitely is something to add.
That would also I know that this ecosystem, because it's so comprehensive and so holistic, that's what I like about it. It's how to create flexibility in the ecosystem. So the equity theory will do the groundwork a bit more in terms of equity and inclusive participation as part of sustainability. So that's that angle I think is very much in your work. It could be definitely good, but nevertheless,
This is a work in progress, so we appreciate any feedback because we still want to continue this research and we appreciate any feedback to improve our work.
first of all, thank you very much. It's great which is right? It's an all side. But I wonder if we it's standpoint it is focus on that they have from your version or just the review the same like certain
It's very important.
Or continue fitting the ethical questions. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
But
you know, I
finding that out,
really
yeah.
hope that this model can help various institutions, education institutions, to gauge their application of AI across all the education ecosystem. So the next step, as Maria mentioned, is to use this model to see the status of AI application in various education ecosystem. Like how what the degree of AI integration by administrator, by teachers, learner. Are there any interaction, or do they use any software application for interaction between all these different players in the education system? So we are very hopeful that this can be, a model that can be used in measuring and gauging the level of AI integration into various education systems.